faces I recognize that have been here historically before, so we welcome you back. And for all the rest of you, we are very excited to share with you what makes Michters Michters. So I am Andrea Wilson. I am the Master of Maturation here. I look after all of the aging stock with an amazing team of individuals who hopefully you will get to meet some of them along the way today. And then the distiller, Dan McKee.
Which I'm very happy because I found out we're not going to have to run. So.
And all of these things happen seamlessly because we will leave this room and they will flip it into a great tasting experience while we're away. We've got Joby in the back here, who all of you have met. Who are running around here as well somewhere. The three of them together help bring all of these things to life for these experiences, because we don't normally do these kinds of things at this location. We do small groups, that we entertain here, but for us to do a large group here is pretty rare for us to do. So we welcome all of you here today.
Barrel entry proof at 103. No distillery of scale is doing that for all of their products like we are, so that's something that separates us. But how about we head out to the granary and we'll walk around the distillery. Before we can receive any load of grain, we're going to have to run it through its quality control test. They'll position the tractor and trailer under the canopy, and then they'll use that grain probe, and they'll take it, insert it into the load of grain several times at various depths. Like a load of grain coming in is going to have about 54,000 pounds of corn on it. So there's things like bushel weight, moisture, aflatoxin, foreign material, damaged kernels, and they'll even do a sensory test on it to make sure there's no objectionable odor. If grain comes in that's moldy or musty, that actually will transfer into the distillate, and the barrel won't be able to remove that. So again, our goal is to have the highest quality ingredients. We elected to go with a cage mill. A few distilleries use them. The whole grain comes into the corn cage mill here. It's going to come out the bottom much finer. Inside, we call them cages. They're multiple layers. They spin opposite of each other. This actually can mill 500 pounds of corn per minute, just to give you an idea how much corn goes into a bourbon vat. Here's our mash cooker, our grain scale. I mentioned we weigh our grain according to the rest and reuse it back in here. It helps us use less water, adjust the pH of the mash. So we use the enzymes provided by the malted barley to convert those starches to simple sugars that are essentially freed in the cooker. Now, like with our Core 4, what's our job? To make sure that we're making the most consistent distillate so that it can go into the barrel. Because if it's wrong here, it's going to be wrong at the end of the day.
Michter standard barrel versus an industry standard barrel is seasoning and air drying of the wood. So a Michter's barrel is going to be seasoned and air dried for a minimum of 18 months. Most standard barrels, maybe for a couple months, maybe not at all. Maybe they've just been kiln dried. So we'll talk about kind of what that means. This is 103 proof. The industry standard is 125 proof. That's the legal maximum, and that's what a lot of people are doing because that's going to be the most cost-effective way to fill your barrels. If you add more water, you have more volume that you have to deal with, which means you have to put that whiskey somewhere. You have to buy more barrels. All of our barrels are incrementally more expensive because they're toasted and they're seasoned, and we have to put those barrels somewhere. It blends better. It can start interacting with all those compounds in the whiskey and start mellowing out. That water gets integrated with the whiskey. The water gets to travel in and out of that beautiful barrel that I'm talking about. All that toasted layer of all this flavor. It gets all the heat cycling benefits. It gets all of the benefits of the maturation and of our barrel. Versus if you start at a higher proof, you have to add more water at the end, and that is just breaking all the beautiful chemistries that you've built inside that barrel. You're just diluting at that point. Some of you may prefer one sticker color to the other sticker color. Totally fine. We all have unique palates. That's great. The only question that I have for you is, do you all taste a difference between these two? Because everything else is the same. The proof that both of these samples are at right now, they're both at 84.8 proof. So they're both, this whiskey's at the same proof that you're drinking. The cooperage was the exact same. They aged right next to each other. It was the same exact fill day. So the same exact distillate. Same tank. We took that tank, we cut it down to 125 proof, added some water to get from 138 down to 125, filled just a handful of barrels. Then we kept cutting down to our spec. We went all the way down to 103 proof, filled the rest of our barrels, and then let them age right next to each other. Aged the same exact amount of time. When they were dumped, cut it down to the same proof. Is our standard Michter's US 1 rye, which is 103 proof. So when you say red drink's a little hotter, that's part of that extra water helps kind of really break down some of those chemistries that are going to be really intense.
Now, there's an old story from Michael Jackson, who is a writer in the spirits industry back in the 80s, and he surmised that the recipe for the Michter's original sour mash was 50% rye grain, 38% corn, and 12% malted barley. And he suggested that perhaps the reason why that was the case was because they didn't want it to be 51% rye grain, because ryes were all but dead after Prohibition.
This one is going to be our Michter's 10-year-old single barrel Kentucky straight rye. I drink a fair amount of ryes. I love Michter's Kentucky style.
which brings a lot of that sweetness to our rye. It's also bringing some, some people get a little chocolate pop out of our 10-year rye as well. Some people talk about the citrus and the chocolate.
Now, Baumburgers, this is a Kentucky straight bourbon at 108 proof. To me, this is a bigger whiskey. It's very rich. Now, for 2023 release, we would have aged some of this bourbon using also some malted rye in it. We would have aged some of it in our new toasted charred American white oak barrels.
It is well known that the female biology is designed to detect things sooner because they were always the nurturers, going back to the beginning of time. So their job was to collect the food, and determine whether or not it was good to eat and all of those things. So I do think, I am not an expert in this field of, flavor science, but what I've read, that is what I understand. So now you translate it to whiskey or food, then it's easy to understand why, like, flavor for me is where I spend my time. Like, I'm really sensitive to a lot of flavor. I like a lot of flavors. I want to be able to detect a lot of flavors. And so complexity is very, very important to me. That is part of my desired whiskey experience, right? So if it's all muted up by a lot of alcohol and spice, then that makes it harder for me to detect the nuances of flavor. And it's actually one of the reasons why we customize the chill filtration here, because we want to be able to detect the complexity of the overall spirit and the overall flavor experience. Super excited to share this with you all today. It's 114.2 proof. It is an amazing whiskey. This whiskey is over 20 years old. It is a big whiskey. I know Paul has reached out a couple of times, to try to get something, and this year he just, if I'm honest, he put his foot down and said, we need to come to Shively, we need to do something big, and I was like, okay, amazing. Blended whiskeys on the market. They really only have to be 20% whiskey in the bottle by law. You can add color, flavor.